And now, speaking of the possibility of moving to Saudi Arabia, that's where Victor Boniface could be heading. 60 million euros. The reported transfer fee. Just 24, of course, a key part of Bayer Leverkusen's success last season. Really kind of burst onto the scene. His goals proving extremely important. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Derek Ray is with us. Derek, this is quite interesting, given his age, given the success he's had at Bayer Leverkusen, but this really does look like it's going to happen.
It does look as though it's going to happen, Dan, and you can't really blame Bayer Leverkusen. You mentioned 60 million euro. I'm actually hearing that it could be north of that figure. So Al Nassr are very keen on him, and Boniface has been on the outside looking in. He's been injured. So what are Leverkusen really supposed to do? This offer comes in, you have a chance to reinvest that money and find a younger replacement, a younger still replacement. And also they need to patch things up because they have, for example, Martin Terrier out for the medium term. That was already on the list to find somebody for him for the medium term. Jean-Noël Bolossian, defender, who's out, so they've wanted to improve things in the squad there as well. It's all happened at warp speed. Simon Rolfe is the sporting chief at Leverkusen and his team negotiating with Al Nassr. But I think it will happen as long as, and this is maybe the one if, as long as Leverkusen can come up with a replacement. Evan Ferguson of Brighton has been mentioned. If Brighton would let him go, he wouldn't be cheap either. But if Leverkusen can find a suitable replacement, I think this will be done.
Do you understand why he would go to Saudi Arabia? As opposed to another league, like maybe a more decorated league?
Well, it's the money. Yeah. When it comes down...
So as former pros, you can be like, yeah, I get it.
Well, yes. See, people sort of fall in love with this idea of being a romantic and thinking about what the professional player is prioritizes, and that, you know when they kiss the crest, they scored a goal and they kiss a crest. Yeah, that only lasts as long as you're actually paying that player what that player thinks is value. The moment that changes and that dynamic changes and there's somebody else who thinks your value is higher, you're no longer kissing that crest. It's professional sports, and we would like to believe that players would be married to a club for a long period of time and that they would develop a relationship with the fans and that it would be a magical ride for everybody. Yeah, it is not. And the truth is that players have to make decisions for themselves because clubs make decisions for themselves. What I would say about Leverkusen and the decision to let Victor Boniface go, it is far easier of a decision and far simpler of a decision because Patrick Schick is currently scoring goals at the rate that he is.
Right.
However, the current reality of Bayer Leverkusen is they are 6 points behind Bayern Munich. They have to be essentially perfect from here on out to really give themselves an opportunity to defend their title. Big game coming up, of course, on February 15, welcoming Bayern Munich at home. A lot of things will be decided there. If you want to be perfect, it's hard for me to come to terms with the idea that you're going to depend on Patrick Schick to score all the goals from here on out, because while he's hot now, we also know that Patrick Schick can sometimes go cold and has had difficulty staying fit. And so what? Does that then become the Nathan Tella show? Is that what they're depending on? They're depending on Frimpong to score the goal? So is it just Florian Wirtz and that's it? That's all we got going on in the attack? Is it a Grimaldo free kick? I think the options in the attack become limited for them once you go beyond Patrick Schick. And if Boniface is not there, then obviously you start to question where are the goals going to come from for Bayer Leverkusen.
Is there any argument to say, look, when you're growing up, you want to go and win the Champions League? You want to go and compete at the highest level, and the Saudi Arabian League isn't that, and it's always going to be there for you, and maybe you should look at other options before this? Or is that just too romantic?
It absolutely is the romance. It's exactly what you're thinking about when you're growing up. It's exactly why you play the game. But unfortunately, eventually we all grow up and become adults, and then you start realising that other things matter. And so it's definitely an individual decision, no question. But when the amount of money is being put in front of you, it's very difficult to turn it down. And I would suggest that Boniface has had his fair share of injuries already, and he's only 24. And apart from the money, maybe he's thinking, do you know what? I maybe can't afford to turn this down because I might never get the opportunity again of getting anywhere close to it. And so off he goes.
Xabi Alonso, what's his status at the club and what do you think his ambition is beyond this season? Obviously, in the summer, again, he's going to be linked to a lot of big jobs. Do you think we'll come next to the start of the next campaign, he's still going to be in charge at Leverkusen?
Well, he's very careful whenever he's asked this question. And, of course, it was a real coup for Leverkusen to keep him when I think conventional wisdom, certainly in countries like England, was that he was definitely going to go there if the offer came his way. And, you know, why would he want to stay at Leverkusen? But I think this has been part of his plan. And, you know, Ali talking there about, yeah, right now they have a difficult task on their hands to chase down Bayern. Let's not forget they're in the DFB-Pokal, the National Cup competition. Bayern are not, so the favourites to win that again. And they're doing pretty well in the Champions League as well. They stand to be one of the teams going through automatically to the next stage in this new format. So it's pretty good going. He's got to assess, you know, what does he want and what does he think he can achieve with this squad? And, you know, maybe he thinks that with a reinvestment of money, such as we're talking about with Boniface, Leverkusen can push on. I have to say, I've always believed, this is just, you know, talking to people and sort of thinking aloud as well. I've always thought that Xabi Alonso probably would want to say goodbye to Leverkusen at the end of the season with, in his mind, Real Madrid being the club that he wants to go to. Because, of course, you know, we know where he's from. He understands the history. And I think we've all felt for a while that maybe it stood to reason that Carlo Ancelotti would, for his part, say goodbye to Real Madrid this summer. Now, listening to Ancelotti, I don't know. He might want to carry on for a lot longer than that. So if that's not an option, and his other great love, one of his other great loves, and Stevie's great love, Liverpool, if that's not an option, which it doesn't appear to be right now, then what do? Do you leave a club to simply say, okay, now I'll you know, take an extended break, take a sabbatical, and then wait for something to come along? Or do you say, no, I've got it pretty good here. He's got a lot of autonomy in Leverkusen. It's a family sort of setup, not quite the media pressure that you have at a place like Madrid or a place like Liverpool. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I still would go with what my gut has said all along, which is this might be it. But
I think a lot will depend on how this season ends for Ancelotti and whether Real Madrid feel that they're in a position to move him on. Ancelotti was very clear, but also I think very clever in his press conference last week when he said there'd been a story had been released and it had come from the club, not from Ancelotti, saying Ancelotti will walk away at the end of the season no matter what. In other words, it will be Ancelotti's choice. Ancelotti came out in a press conference and said, I will never choose the date that I leave this club. I will go when the club sack me. That could be tomorrow, could be next year, it could be in 5 years. And then he said, I'd like to be here for all the time that Florentino is here. Florentino's just been voted in again as president. Well, there wasn't actually a vote, but he's in again as president. And that's another 4 years. He said, so me and Florentino can leave together. And with the greatest of affection in the world. And I think that was very, very pointed from Ancelotti. I think Xabi Alonso is a very interesting case. And he's an interesting case because if you look at his managerial career, he's taken decisions at times that people haven't expected. Last summer, I remember people saying, well, why would you not go now when you've got the three biggest jobs in the world all available to you? If you want to go to Liverpool, it's there. If you want to go to Real Madrid, it's there. If you want to go to Bayern Munich, it's there. The three clubs you've played for in three different countries, the three biggest clubs in those countries, arguably in each case, and it's there for you now. And well, why wouldn't you go now when you've got these three? Well, there was two arguments against that, and I think Xabi Alonso had both of them in his mind. One is, because I don't need three options, I need one. And I need it to be the right one. And it doesn't need to happen now. And the other was that he wanted this season the Champions League with Leverkusen. And he has always, I think, had the calmness to choose his times, which others haven't. And I think choosing his time means seeing out this season. And if I was a betting man, I would say he will be at Real Madrid next year.
Sid, don't lie on that bed yet. Neither you, Derek. Both will be on extra time a little bit later on. Just a reminder, the Bundesliga continues on ESPN+. Every game live for you on Saturday. Bayern Munich taking on Holstein Kiel. Borussia Dortmund away against Heidenheim. Union Berlin against Leipzig is our late game. Then on Sunday, Eintracht Frankfurt against Wolfsburg. And then to wrap things up, Bayer Leverkusen against Hoffenheim.